It's 6 a.m. local time on February 25, 1991. A flight of 4 A10 Thunderbolts from the 23rd Tactical Fighter Wing crossed the Saudi border into Kuwait at 1,500 feet, throttles forward, heading northwest toward the Mutla Ridge. Below them, the desert floor was already burning. Iraqi armored columns that had been pushing south through Kuwait City the night before were now trying to reverse back north toward Basra, jammed onto a single four-lane highway with nowhere to go and nothing above them yet. The lead pilot, call sign Sandy 01, pushed the nose down to 500 feet and keyed the radio. Tally, armor on the highway. We're going to work. The A10 dropped lower, 300 feet above the desert floor, doing 350 knots. The Maverick missile stations loaded, the GAU-8 Avenger cannon warm and ready in the nose. Below the cockpit, a column of Iraqi T-72 tanks and personnel carriers stretched 4 miles up the highway, nose to tail, completely static. The lead vehicle had already been hit by an Air Force F-111 20 minutes earlier and was burning across both lanes, blocking everything behind it. Sandy 01 rolled in on the first tank. Operation Desert Storm had been running for 38 days when the ground offensive began on February 24, 1991. 5 weeks of continuous coalition airstrikes had systematically dismantled Iraq's air defense network, destroyed its command infrastructure, and cut its supply lines into Kuwait. By the time U.S. Army and Marine units crossed the border, the Iraqi military that met them on the ground was not the force that had invaded Kuwait 6 months earlier. It was a force that had been bombed continuously for 5 weeks, was running low on fuel and ammunition, and in many sectors had already lost the will to fight. But it still had tanks, thousands of them. Soviet-built T-72s and T-55s dug into sand berms across southern Kuwait, and the one asset the coalition had that was specifically designed to kill tanks at low altitude in large numbers over a sustained period was the A-10 Thunderbolt II. The Air Force had deployed 144 A-10s to the Gulf. They flew out of King Fahd Airport and forward operating location Tallil once ground forces pushed north. What happened on the Mutla Ridge on February 25th became the single most concentrated demonstration of what the A-10 could do when the conditions were right, the target was fixed, and the aircraft had enough ammunition to stay. The Mutla Ridge is a low escarpment north of Kuwait City, the only significant elevated terrain between the capital and the Iraqi border. The highway running over it, Highway 80, was the main northbound route out of Kuwait City toward Basra. On the night of February 25th, as U.S. Marines entered Kuwait City from the south and Arab coalition forces closed from the east, Iraqi forces in the city broke and ran. Every vehicle that could move headed for Highway 80. Military convoys, looted civilian cars, armored personnel carriers, fuel trucks, ammunition transporters. Everything funneled onto the same road heading north. Then the F-111 put a laser-guided bomb through the lead vehicle at the top of the ridge. The column stopped. 4 miles of vehicles, packed bumper to bumper, sitting static on an open highway with no air cover, no AAA support left worth mentioning, and dawn coming up fast. Sandy 01 and his flight of 4 A-10s arrived at first light. The pilot pushed the nose down to 300 feet, leveling off over the flat desert with the highway filling the windscreen ahead of him. At 350 knots and 300 feet, the ground was moving underneath the cockpit fast enough that individual vehicles were recognizable for about 2 seconds before they blurred past. Tank, a PC, truck, tank. All of them stationary, all of them facing the wrong direction to shoot back effectively at something coming in from the south at low level. Sandy 01 pickles his first AGM-65 Maverick. Inside the cockpit, he locks the target on a grainy 5-inch screen. The missile's seeker head tracks the heat contrast of the tank against the road, and once locked, it's a death sentence. From 2 miles out, the missile is in the air for just 12 seconds. Sandy doesn't wait for impact. He's already slewing his seeker to the next vehicle. The Maverick's shaped charge punches through the T-72's thin turret roof, igniting the ammunition inside. The resulting jack-in-the-box effect blows the multi-ton turret clean off the chassis. As oily smoke climbs 3,000 feet, Sandy banks left, pulling 5 Gs to set up his next run. With his missiles expended, the pilot switches to the A10's legendary centerpiece, the GAU-8 Avenger. This isn't just a gun mounted in a plane. The A10 is an airframe built around a 19-foot-long cannon, firing 30mm depleted uranium rounds at 3,900 rounds per minute. The recoil is so massive, it literally slows the aircraft in flight. On the ground, the sound is a terrifying, violent rip, like the earth being torn in half. Sandy holds the trigger for 2 seconds, walking 130 rounds through a line of APCs. The uranium penetrators shred the armor, turning the vehicles into furnaces of molten metal. As the morning wears on, F-16S and Navy A-6S join the fray, but the A-10s stay the longest. Their loiter time is unmatched. While supersonic jets must RTB for fuel, the Warthogs circle like vultures. They are low enough to see soldiers fleeing into the dunes and hear the clink of small arms fire bouncing off the titanium bathtub, protecting the cockpit. By the time Sandy 01 turns south to rearm, Highway 80 is a 4-mile-long junkyard. With 1,500 vehicles destroyed or abandoned, the Highway of Death became the defining visual record of the air campaign's lethality. Mutla Ridge wasn't a showcase of stealth. It was a demonstration of raw, persistent air power. The A-10 fleet flew over 8,000 sorties during the war, credited with 900 tanks and 2,000 vehicles, while losing only 5 aircraft. One Warthog even limped home with an entire engine missing, proving the ruggedness of its design. Before 1991, the Air Force wanted to retire the Hog. After Desert Storm, that conversation stopped. When troops are in trouble, there is no sound more beautiful than the brrrr-t of an Avenger cannon. The Warthog proved itself as the undisputed king of close air support, ugly, loud, and impossible to replace. Like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next one.